So I'm in Nelson, Richmond, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make it all the way through Lewis Pass to Hanmer Springs in my 30 kilowatt Nissan Leaf. Now the reason why this is difficult is because there is currently, in between that stretch, one charger that's directly on the way. That's the Murchison charger, and that is, well, pretty much if I leave here with 95%, I may make it to Murchison with 11%. That's per power trip. So that's pretty close. What we're going to try and do is we're going to try and charge to 100% in Richmond, just to make it slightly more margin to get to Murchison. But that's not even the hardest part. So the hardest part comes after Murchison. Now, basically how it works is there is from Murchison to Springs Junction is the most direct route. That's going down through the Lewis Pass and arriving eventually at Culverden. But really there needs to be a fast charger at Springs Junction. However, currently there isn't one. However, there is a motel that will let EV owners charge there for the low price of $5, and that's a commando charger, so that will take about 5 hours to fill your vehicle. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm actually going to detour to Reefton. Now Reefton is further away. If you're going as the crow flies, it's a further distance to go from Murchison to Reefton and then back to Springs Junction. But Reefton is slightly closer to Springs Junction than Murchison is. So what that means is that I should get to Springs Junction with only 50% remaining, and from there I should be able to it will take me less time to charge, and then I should be able to make it to Hanmer Springs. Now why are we going to Hanmer Springs? Well, for one thing, it's a nice place to visit with the pools. There's no fast charger there though. The next fast charger is the Culverden. So the reason we're going to Hanmer Springs is because there are more slow chargers there. So in Hanmer Springs there is some lovely Type 2 chargers installed by Meridian Energy, and my plan is to basically go there and then spend 4 hours refilling my car, and that will give me the juice I need to make it easily to Culverden. Now it's not the most efficient route, but it'll work, or at least I hope so. So we'll find out. So this is Will in Nelson signing off, and we'll see you in the next stop in Murchison, hopefully. Oh, it's really bright. Okay, let's try our glasses on. I'm now in Reefton. I was going to make a video in Murchison, but it was way too hot, so I couldn't be bothered. So going from Nelson at 100% to Murchison, I made it to Murchison with 20%. So whoops! So Editor Will here. I'm just putting this video together, and I realised I've made this really complicated graph, and I haven't taken the time to explain how it's all going to show up. So first of all, on the far left hand side we have the charging information. So this is at the top how much I paid to charge at this particular time session. We've got how much energy that I put into the car. We've got the amount of time it took to charge the car, and we've got the amount that I charged the car up to, or in this case 80%. Next we have the destination or the trip driving information. This one took me about 1 hour and 40 minutes. It was an average speed of 72 kilometers per hour. I'll just make a note about this. It doesn't actually mean I'm driving at 72 kilometers an hour. It just means my average speed. So that needs to take into account the speed that I'm going on corners, the speed that I'm going through towns. So you will notice it is lower overall than you might do on some sort of straightaways, or if I was going 100 k's an hour. But it's not actually representative of 72 k's an hour. Over the entire journey. Anyway, back to my explanation, and also 7.2 kilometers per kilowatt on average. Then we've got the battery state of charge. So this is the amount of charge left in the battery when I arrived at my destination. And then we've got the percentage used. So that is basically the difference of the battery state of health left compared to what we set off with. And then we've got the elevation profile. So elevation profile plays a huge role in the amount of energy that is used on journeys for electric vehicles. So I always like to include that as well, so you can sort of see what the terrain is and how that might have affected my energy usage. Anyway, back to the show. I made it to Murchison with 20%. So obviously I erred a little bit higher than I needed to. Probably could have got away with leaving Richmond with 90%, and then would have arrived with 10%, which is, not too bad. Most of that whole way I was doing at 80 k's to 90 k's an hour on the Leaf dashboard, and then from Murchison I charged just 80%. It said that we'd hit here about 15%, and then coming from Murchison to here, we were travelling probably between 70 and 80. It's a pretty windy road. I wasn't really going that slower than what would have been allowed. and we got here with 17% left, so that's only just 2% higher than what we would have done. So plenty of margin there. Maybe if you were going a bit faster you wouldn't have managed to make it with that much. But now we're here, we've got 17%, so now we're going to try and charge to 100%, and then we're heading off to Springs Junction, and that's the gap. From here to Springs Junction to Hanmer Springs, and the next actual fast charger is going to be in Culverden. So for now, you know, you've got to bridge that gap. If you're in a Nissan 30 kilowatt Leaf or smaller, you've got to bridge that gap with a stop at a slow charger. So we made it to Lewis Pass in Springs Junction, to be precise. So I'm currently at the Lewis Pass Motel, and I'm charging up for the grand total of $5, and we'll probably actually only need to be here for about an hour or two. So I got here with about 60% remaining, and my guessometer says it's got about 100 k's. However, it's also 100 k's to Hanmer Springs, so that's definitely too tight to cut it, especially when we're talking about a hilly terrain that I haven't travelled with this vehicle before, and I don't necessarily know if we would make it there before dark, so that will use more energy usage with headlights, etc, etc, etc. So we're going to charge here for 2 hours just to give a bit more buffer, and then make the rest of the way to Hanmer Springs. But yeah, it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. So a couple of things just about our trip here from Reefton. So I was driving most of the way at 80 k's max. I mean, part of that is because of the road, but also part of that is just to reduce energy usage. So 80 kilometers, 70 kilometers in parts, just because of the road turns. But yeah, got here with 99 k's remaining on the guessometer. And you probably could, if you're really, really crazy, push it to try and go all the way to Hanmer Springs. But we're going to take it easy, charge for a bit, just get a bit of buffer, and make it the rest of the way in the morning. So yeah. So I'm standing right now in the EV charging area at Hanmer Springs. I just spent 4 hours in the pools. It was absolutely lovely. My car is charged to 95%. So we ended up getting here with about 25% remaining. Which was right on sort of what PowerTrip predicted I'd have left after I charged 90%. So really good to see that PowerTrip nailed it in terms of the estimating accurately how much we'd use, and that I didn't need to tap into my buffer. Now, obviously next time I do this, I'll know exactly how much the trip costs and exactly how much I need to charge to. But so I can be a bit more efficient next time. But at least for this time, I've done it. I've travelled from Nelson through the Lewis Pass without enough fast charging infrastructure there, via stopping at Springs Junction. So I really look forward to when ChargeNet does install the charger at Springs Junction, but for now it's definitely possible. And just for future reference, we could have, if you charge to 100% at Reefton, and then you charge for an hour at Springs Junction, that would have been more than ample to have a safe margin. Now one small caveat of that is that we were travelling slower than open road speed, so I was trying to keep it about 80 or 90 depending on sort of how flat and straight the road was. Obviously if you go at 100 k's you're going to use a lot more. If you were trying to replicate this, I would keep with a margin of an hour's charging from your 50% loss, and I would keep under 90 k's. But if you do that, you should be good, and if you aren't good, then it's not my fault, and I defer all responsibility for you getting stuck in the middle of Lewis Pass. But good luck with your travels. Ciao.